The millionaire, CEO, panics without a translator until the cleaning lady solves everything in 1 minute. Before we begin, we'd love to know, what country are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. And at the end, don't forget to give this story a rating from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. She was just the cleaning lady, until he realized she understood him better than anyone. He was a billionaire CEO who trusted no one. Numbers were his language. Power was his shield. But the day his translator failed, it wasn't the boardroom that saved him. It was the woman no one ever looked at twice. She stepped through the glass door, read a line of legal French, and rewrote the future of his company, and maybe his heart. The woman no one noticed. They were all staring at it, a fax with thick legal French and billion-dollar consequences. Nobody could read it. Nobody except the woman mopping the hallway. Logan Lancaster didn't panic often, but this morning, standing in front of a boardroom full of Ivy League degrees and billion-dollar egos, even he felt the pressure in his chest. The French conglomerate's offer was time-sensitive, filled with technical language, clauses, and traps. Their translator had called in sick, and the room was falling apart. He slammed the paper on the table. "I need a translation." Now, phones rang. Assistants whispered. Executives blinked like deer in headlights, but no one moved. Down the hallway, Clara Martinez pushed her cleaning cart past the glass wall of the conference room. She didn't mean to stop. She didn't mean to listen. But when she heard the words million-dollar clause in legal French, she froze. No one looked at her. They never did. She was just the cleaner. She took a breath, then another, and stepped forward. "Excuse me. I might be able to help." The entire room turned, confused. One of the board members actually laughed. Logan stared. He looked her up and down, gloves on her hands, cleaning rag tucked into her belt. "You can read this." "I can try," she said. Voice steady, he hesitated, then handed her the paper. Clara didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the lines quickly, silently. Then she spoke. Clause 3. Party A reserves the right to revoke exclusivity if Party B doesn't meet first quarter projections. Logan's face changed. "That wasn't in the last version," he muttered. "They added it quietly." Clara replied, "It's a trap. If you sign, they can walk away." The room went still. Logan took the paper back and read the line again. She was right. She was absolutely right, and no one else in the room had noticed. He looked up, stunned. She was already turning to leave. "Wait, what's your name?" She turned slightly. "Clara. Clara Martinez." And then she walked out, back into the hallway, back to her cart, as if she hadn't just saved $20 million with a single sentence. That night, Logan didn't sleep. He didn't think about mergers or projections or his next quarterly report. He thought about her, the quiet woman no one had noticed until the moment she saw something no one else could. And by morning, he knew exactly what he had to do. Chapter 1. The cleaning lady who asked for a safety net. The next morning, Clara was vacuuming the break room on the 25th floor when 2 security guards approached her. She straightened, heart already racing. "Is something wrong?" One of them smiled politely. "Mr. Lancaster wants to see you." Her first thought was, "They think I faked it." Her second, "I'm getting fired." She wiped her hands on her apron and followed them silently into the elevator. The numbers lit up one by one. 38, 42, 48. She'd never been this high up. The top floor looked like another planet, silent carpets, floor-to-ceiling windows, desks that gleamed like glass, and not a single trace of dust. A woman with perfect posture and pearls at her collar greeted her. "He's expecting you. Would you like coffee?" Clara shook her head, suddenly aware of how out of place her shoes looked on the expensive flooring. Logan was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the Boston skyline like it was a chessboard. When she entered, he turned. "Have a seat." Clara. Her name sounded strange in his voice, like something valuable. She sat down, folding her hands in her lap to hide the tremble. "I reviewed the contract again last night," he said. "You were right." Clara nodded once. "I'm glad." A pause. Then, quietly, "How did you know how to read that?" She looked up, eyes calm. "I studied languages and translation. French, Spanish, English, some Mandarin. Graduated top of my class." His brow lifted. "Then why?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because resumes with certain last names don't get called back. Because bills don't wait for opportunity. And because cleaning companies don't check your GPA." Logan leaned back on his desk, folding his arms. "I have a job offer for you," he said. "Not janitorial." Clara's eyes flickered. "What kind of job?" "My personal translator. International meetings. Contracts. Travel." She didn't speak right away, just looked at him really. Looked not at the suit, or the office, or the power. At the man. "Are you serious?" "I rarely joke about things like this." Clara exhaled slowly, then said, "I'll accept, on one condition." He tilted his head. "What's that?" "I want to keep the cleaning job." He blinked. "Excuse me, just for a while," she said, "until I know this isn't temporary or impulsive." "You think I'm impulsive?" "I think you're a powerful man who's used to getting what he wants. But people are not assets, and I've lived long enough to know that even generous offers can vanish overnight." Logan stared at her, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Respect. Maybe something else. "You want a safety net?" Clara nodded. "Yes." He was quiet for a long time. Then he let out a short, honest laugh. "You really are smart." "I have to be." "It won't be easy," he said. "Translator by day, janitor by night." Clara shrugged. "I've done harder things." He extended his hand. "Then we have a deal." Clara Martinez. She took it firmly. "We do, Mr. Lancaster." By lunchtime, the news had spread through the company like wind in a dry forest. Whispers, glances, theories. The cleaning lady. She must have had some kind of leverage. No way she just earned it. She must know something. Clara sat alone in the cafeteria with a tray of food she couldn't taste, trying to ignore the eyes. That's when Richard Blackwood pulled out the chair across from her. He didn't ask. He didn't smile. "So," he said, "you're the famous Clara." She nodded. "Hello, Mr. Blackwood. You can call me Richard. We're colleagues now, aren't we?" His voice was smooth. Too smooth. "I suppose we are," she said carefully. He leaned back, arms crossed, watching her like an exhibit behind glass. "I've been here 22 years, he said, "and I've never seen anyone move from the mop closet to the executive floor in one morning." Clara raised her eyes to his. "Life's full of surprises." "It is, especially when certain talents are involved." There it was, the bite beneath the smile. "Sorry," she said softly. "You're a smart girl," he said, voice low and pointed. "You know what I'm saying." Clara set her fork down, looked at him the way one might look at a fly circling too close. "You're right," she said. "I do have certain talents." His smile tightened. "Do tell." "I can read legal French without Google Translate." A few nearby heads turned. "I can spot hidden clauses that save companies millions." A soft chuckle rose from a neighboring table. "And," Clara said, leaning in with a gentle smile, "I know the difference between intelligence and insecurity." Silence. Richard's face turned a shade redder than his tie. "Young lady." "No," Clara interrupted. "You listen. I didn't sleep with anyone. I didn't blackmail anyone. I didn't beg for this job. I just did what none of you could do. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." She stood, picked up her tray, and paused just long enough to add, "Oh, and Richard, the next time you imply a woman got ahead, by anything other than merit. Make sure she can't prove otherwise with a single sentence. She walked out, heads turned, smiles hidden behind coffee cups. Murmurs floated in the air. Richard sat alone, outplayed. And upstairs, Logan Lancaster got a text from Patricia. Clara just dismantled Richard in the cafeteria. It was glorious. He smiled, just once, and thought, maybe I hired the right woman after all. She hadn't just stepped into the company. She'd stepped into their world. And whether they liked it or not, she wasn't leaving. Chapter 2. The Lunchroom Whisper War. By the time Clara walked back onto the 48th floor, her face was calm, but inside, everything buzzed anger, adrenaline, and something else she didn't want to name. She hadn't meant to start anything. All she wanted was a job that didn't judge her by her shoes. Instead, she had become a symbol, and symbols always made people talk. That afternoon, Patricia found her reorganizing French contracts at her temporary desk near Logan's office. "You okay?" Patricia asked, glancing around. "I'm fine," Clara replied without looking up. "You sure?" Because Richard Blackwood just stormed into HR looking like someone insulted his golf handicap. Clara allowed herself a small smile. He insulted himself. Patricia leaned in slightly, her voice lower. "Well, whatever you said. It's spreading like wildfire. Half the staff is either impressed or terrified." Clara looked up. "Why terrified?" Patricia grinned. "Because for the first time, someone told the truth, and no one here knows what to do with that." Later, in the executive cafeteria, whispers floated like dust. "She's the one who caught that hidden clause. I heard she speaks 5 languages. Yeah. I heard she used to date the CEO. That's how she got promoted. She's a janitor. You don't go from bleach to boardroom in one day. She probably found something personal in his office, used it." Clara sat at a small corner table, quietly eating her salad and pretending not to hear. But she heard everything, every word a slice, every laugh a small burn. She had worked too hard for this, too long, too quietly. And now, the noise felt louder than the progress. Just breathe. Keep your head down. Prove them wrong. Again. That's when Logan walked in. Not as the CEO. Not today. Today, he walked in like a man scanning the room for someone. And when he saw her, his shoulders eased. He walked over, a black coffee in hand. "Mind if I sit?" Clara blinked. "Here, with me. I figured I'd borrow some of your cafeteria clout." She gestured to the seat. "Be my guest." He sat down, setting his cup down with unusual care. Silence settled between them. She stirred her salad. He sipped his coffee. Around them, the whispers turned into an awkward hush. "See, I heard about the Blackwood thing," Logan said after a moment. Clara kept her eyes on her food. "You going to fire me for standing up to him?" "God, no," Logan said, almost laughing. "I wanted to shake your hand." That made her look up. His eyes held none of the cold professionalism they usually did. Just honesty, and maybe pride. "You didn't have to say anything," he said. "I know, but you did, and you were right." Clara sighed, setting her fork down. "Sometimes, I wonder if I made it worse." "For who?" "For myself." Logan leaned forward, voice lower now. "Clara, when I gave you this job, I didn't expect you to blend in. I expected you to change the game." She looked at him, skeptical. "Even if the game doesn't want to be changed." He smiled, especially then. She shook her head, amused. "You talk like someone who's never been the outsider." Logan leaned back, sipping his coffee again. "You'd be surprised." Clara tilted her head. "Try me!" He hesitated, then looked up at her with something unreadable in his expression. "My parents never came to my graduation," he said softly. She blinked. "Sorry." He shrugged. "Too busy." I stood there, in a cap and gown, waiting. and they never showed. Clara went still. It's why I work so much, he added. Because if I stop, I remember. A long silence. You don't seem like the type to share, Clara said finally. I'm not, Logan admitted, but you're not the type to be underestimated either. And here we are. She smiled, small and honest. Here we are. For a moment, the noise of the cafeteria disappeared. The whispers faded. The glances lost their sting. It was just them two people who didn't quite belong where they were, but found something familiar in each other. I think I need better shoes, Clara murmured. Logan raised an eyebrow. Why? Because apparently I'm walking in places no one expected me to be. He laughed, and it wasn't the sharp laugh of a boardroom victory. It was real, soft. Patricia can help with that, he said. She has strong opinions about footwear and power. Clara chuckled. So do janitors. They both laughed, then not loudly, but enough to feel like something had shifted somewhere nearby. Richard Blackwood watched them from behind his paper, lips tight. But neither of them noticed. They had started as stranger and savior, then boss and employee, but somewhere between rumors and quiet smiles, they were becoming something else. Chapter 3. He thought she was his wife. The hotel lobby smelled like roses and polished stone. Clara stood near the check-in counter of the Bristol Hotel in Paris, clutching the handle of her suitcase. She had changed out of her travel clothes into a simple navy blue suit that still felt too nice for her. The tag from the outlet store was tucked in her pocket, just in case she needed to return it later. She had barely slept on the flight. Logan, on the other hand, looked like he belonged here. Tailored black coat, leather briefcase in hand, greeting the staff in fluent French. This place is unreal, Clara whispered. It's nothing, Logan said with a smile. You should see the one in Tokyo. Of course, because flying to Tokyo wasn't a dream to him. It was a Tuesday. The front desk clerk, a man with slicked back hair and a smile meant for photographs, lit up when he saw Logan. Ah, Monsieur Lancaster, welcome back, and Madame Lancaster. What an honor, Clara blinked. Excuse me. The clerk was already typing into the system, speaking French, too fast for Clara to interrupt. We've prepared the honeymoon suite as requested roses, champagne, the rooftop dinner with violinist. It's all set. Clara turned to Logan. He thinks we're married. I noticed, Logan murmured, hiding a smile. Do something, she hissed under her breath. I'm enjoying this too much. She elbowed him. Hard! Pierre, Logan said at last, raising a hand. This is Clara Martinez, my translator. She'll need a separate room. Pierre froze mid-keystroke. 1,000 apologies, he gasped. So sorry. Mademoiselle Martinez, we shall correct it immediately. Clara stepped in, her French crisp and confident. It's an understandable mistake. No harm done. Pierre blinked, clearly stunned by her accent. Did you study in Paris? Boston, she said. He shook his head. Impossible. You sound like you were born here. Logan watched the exchange in silence, something warm flickering in his chest. Pierre handed over 2 key cards. Adjacent rooms. Of course. I hope your stay is magnificent. 2 hours later, Clara was in the lobby, waiting for Logan before their meeting with the French investors. She was reviewing the documents again, mouthing notes to herself in French. Her nerves buzzed. This was her first time translating in real time, in front of people with power and accents sharper than razors. Ready? Logan asked as he walked up beside her. I think so, she said. You don't look nervous. I don't get nervous. That's because you're not the one translating metaphors about corporate synergy in another language. Logan smirked. Just remember, they don't need perfect French. They need to feel understood. Clara exhaled. Right. The meeting room smelled like espresso and too much cologne. 3 investors sat across the table. Marcel Dubois, the conservative, Sophie Moreau, the idealist, and Jean-Luc Bertrand, the wild card. Introductions were formal. Logan spoke in English, and Clara translated each phrase into French clear, steady, graceful. At first, the investors barely looked at her. Another assistant, another accessory. But then something changed. Clara didn't just translate, she interpreted. She shifted idioms, softened aggressive phrases, adjusted tone. When Logan said cutting edge, she said à la pointe, but added confiance. To soften it, when he mentioned market disruption, she translated it to revolution douce, a gentle shift, not a threat. Jean-Luc raised an eyebrow. You translated disruption as revolution douce. Why? Because disruption in English implies innovation. In French, it sounds aggressive. Revolution douce keeps the meaning without the tension. He leaned forward, intrigued. Marcel, silent until now, finally said, in 20 years, I've never seen an American translator who understands us like this. Logan said nothing. He just watched Clara with a new kind of attention, like he was seeing her for the first time. That night, over dinner, at a quiet bistro near the hotel, Logan lifted his glass to the woman who made 3 French investors believe I had a heart. Clara laughed. That's generous. You made them lean in. You made them listen. I just did my job. No, Logan said. You did more than that. You understood what they needed to hear. She looked at him across the table, something soft passing between them. You ever think this is all a mistake? She asked. This? He raised an eyebrow. This? Me? Here, at this table, with you? Logan set down his glass. No, I don't. Why not? He leaned forward. Because you belong in any room you walk into. You just needed someone to open the door. Clara looked down, stirred her wine. Sometimes, I still feel like that girl pushing a mop down the hallway. Logan's voice was quieter now. You'll never be that girl again. Back at the hotel, the elevator was slow. They stood side by side, quiet, not boss and translator, not even man and woman, just 2 people realizing the silence between them had changed. I have a question, Clara said. Shoot. What if Pierre was right? Logan turned, confused. Right about what? She looked up at him. Serious. What if we were married? The doors opened. Neither of them stepped out. And in that moment, nothing was translated. Nothing had to be. That night, she didn't sleep, not because of the meeting, but because of the way he looked at her when she spoke French. Like she wasn't just a voice in the room. Like she was something he hadn't expected to want. Chapter 4. The day she rewrote the room. The second day in Paris dawned cold and bright. Clara stood by the tall window of her hotel room, holding a cup of too strong coffee in her hands. Across the street, the rooftops of the city gleamed like slate in the morning sun. She'd barely slept. She wasn't nervous about the meeting. Not anymore. She was nervous about him, about the way Logan had looked at her last night, like he didn't see the job title anymore. Like he saw something else, and she had seen something too. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a man tired, thoughtful, funny, in ways he didn't realize. A man she should not be thinking about when she had investors to impress. At the offices of Dubois and Moreau, the meeting room was filled with glass and tension. Contracts were lined up on the long table, ready for review. The French team had brought lawyers, analysts, and interpreters, none of whom smiled. Clara adjusted her jacket. Logan leaned in and whispered, "You ready?" She nodded once. He opened the meeting in English. Clear, confident, controlled. Clara followed him, translating line by line into French, not word for word, but with nuance, precision. She replaced idioms, rearranged structures, made his tone softer, warmer, more human. The room listened, then leaned in when Jean-Luc interrupted. asking for clarification on the profit projections. Clara didn't hesitate. She explained the figures, then offered a cultural reference to soften the sharpness of the numbers. Marcel raised an eyebrow, then gave a small nod. She had them. Then Sophie, the youngest investor, leaned forward. "You said your model encourages sustainable local development," she said in French. "But many American firms say this and do the opposite." Logan opened his mouth, but Clara touched his arm gently, just for a second. He paused, then, quietly, let her speak. Clara looked Sophie in the eye and said, in perfect French, "I was raised by a seamstress who made clothes by hand. She taught me that real value isn't built quickly. It's sewn with care. This project won't cut corners, because some of us have lived on the edge of them." The room went silent. Then Sophie smiled, the kind of smile that meant, "We believe you." After the meeting, the French team shook hands, gave warm goodbyes, and promised formal signatures by next week. As the doors closed behind them, Logan turned to Clara. "You didn't just translate that meeting," he said. "You rewrote the room." She shrugged. "They needed more than numbers. You gave them a reason to trust me." She looked at him. "I know. I gave them a reason to trust you, not just your presentation." He went quiet. "Then, what you said about the seamstress, your grandmother." Clara smiled softly. "She's the reason I do everything." He studied her for a moment. "Remind me to thank her someday." That night, Logan invited her to dinner. Again, but this time, it wasn't fancy. It was a little cafe with chipped tables and chalkboard menus. Jazz hummed from a hidden speaker. They sat across from each other by a candle and a wine bottle. Clara wore no makeup. Logan had rolled up his sleeves, and for the first time since they'd arrived in Paris, it didn't feel like a business trip. It felt like something else. "Did you ever dream of this?" Logan asked, halfway through a plate of duck confit. "What?" "Translating deals in Paris." He shook his head. "Being seen, heard, respected." Clara thought for a moment. "No," she said. "I dreamed of paying the electric bill on time." He chuckled, then grew serious. "You know what scares me most?" She waited. "That the only reason I'm starting to feel alive again is because of you." The candle flickered. Clara didn't respond right away, because deep down, she was afraid of the same thing. That this wasn't just chemistry. This was something she had no backup plan for. Back at the hotel, they rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, they didn't speak. They just stood there for a beat, facing each other, close enough to feel the breath between them. Then Logan said, quietly, "You changed something in that room today." "In the investors." He shook his head. "In me." She felt her heart skip. Then she smiled. "That's not my job." Logan stepped back. "No, but you're doing it anyway." And then he turned, walked toward his room, and left her standing there, heart pounding, the key card shaking in her hand. That night, she lay awake in a city of lights, wondering what was more dangerous, the power she'd found in her voice, or the way he was starting to listen. Chapter 5. Rumors, Red Dresses, and A Man Who Couldn't Look Away. The grand ballroom at the Four Seasons glittered like a snow globe, all crystal chandeliers, white florals, and too many powerful people pretending to enjoy themselves. Clara stood near the entrance, heart thudding, feeling like someone had dropped her into the wrong movie. The navy blue gown Patricia helped her choose hugged her waist, subtle and elegant, but still far from what she was used to. Her heels clicked too loudly on marble. Her palms were damp. Logan, of course, fit in, like he was carved from the space itself. Black tux, quiet confidence, drink in hand. People swarmed around him, like bees around sugar. He spoke softly, gestured minimally, yet somehow everyone listened. Clara lingered near the edge of the room, unsure if she was supposed to follow him or disappear. She hated feeling unsure. Want to know a secret? Logan said behind her. She jumped slightly. I didn't know anyone here my first time either. I stood by the shrimp table for 30 minutes, pretending to be deeply moved by cocktail sauce. Clara laughed, softly. I don't know if I should blend in or stand out. He looked at her. Really looked. You couldn't blend in if you tried. And just like that, her heartbeat changed tempo. For the next hour, Clara moved from conversation to conversation, greeting international guests, translating small talk, answering questions about markets in 3 languages. Every time she looked up, Logan's eyes were somewhere nearby, and then she walked into her past, or rather, his. Victoria Ashford arrived fashionably late tall, blonde, wearing a red silk dress that could silence a room. She looked like she belonged on the cover of a finance magazine, impossibly polished and perfectly aware of it. Clara saw Logan stiffen before Victoria even reached them. Logan, Victoria cooed. What a surprise. Victoria, you look, well, and you look prosperous, as always. Her gaze slid to Clara. And who's this? Before Logan could answer, Clara extended her hand. Clara Martinez, translator for Lancaster Enterprises. Victoria took it briefly, her smile thin. Translator, interesting. I thought you'd finally found someone special. Clara caught the dig. The kind women like Victoria hid behind perfect lipstick. She smiled. Actually, he did. A good translator is rare these days. A pause, a shift. Then came the icy reply, I'm sure. Especially one who blends so seamlessly into corporate settings. Translation, you don't belong here. Clara tilted her head. Yes, adaptability is crucial. For instance, I can translate contracts in 5 languages. Some people just change fiancés when the first one goes broke. A silence fell over their small circle. Victoria's face paled, her jaw tight. Logan covered a laugh with a cough. A nearby Italian investor chuckled audibly. I like this girl, he said. Victoria straightened. Well, this was enlightening. She turned on her expensive heels and walked off. Logan turned to Clara, amused. That was impressive. She started it, and you finished it perfectly. Later, on the balcony, Clara leaned against the stone railing, breathing in the cool night air. The ballroom murmured behind her like a distant storm. Logan joined her with 2 champagne flutes. I wasn't sure if you drank champagne, he said. I wasn't sure if this night was real, she replied. They clinked glasses. For what it's worth, he said after a moment. You belong here more than anyone in that room. Even her. Especially her. Clara smiled. You didn't deserve what she did. He looked down at his glass. I've spent years wondering what I did wrong. You didn't fail her, Clara said. She failed to see you. He glanced at her, something unreadable in his eyes. How do you know that? Because I see you. The words slipped out. Before she could catch them, she froze. But he didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer. What do you see? Clara. Her heart pounded. I see a man who knows the weight of silence, who listens when no one else does, who gives chances when no one expects him to. He stared at her, and for the first time, all the walls between them felt thin. Breakable? Logan reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. You scare me, Clara. Why? Because for the first time, I'm not sure if I'm in control. She looked up at him, voice low. Maybe that's the point. They didn't kiss, not yet. But they stood there in the cool air of a Parisian night, side by side, hearts louder than the music behind them. Clara didn't win the room with money, power, or charm. She won it by knowing who she was. And for the first time, Logan wished he could translate that kind of strength into his own life. Chapter 6. The Hospital Call That Changed Everything. The Korean investors were asking about logistics. Clara was translating fluently, her voice steady, her hands resting lightly on the edge of the conference table. Logan stood beside her, running through quarterly growth projections. She had done this 100 times by now. She knew how to shape his words to different cultures, soften American directness with just enough diplomacy. She was poised, focused, until her phone set to silent began to vibrate. She ignored it the first time, and the second. But when she saw the caller ID Boston General Hospital, her heart stopped. She stood without thinking. "Excuse me," she murmured. Logan looked at her, confused. She didn't meet his eyes. In the hallway, she answered the phone with shaking fingers. "This is Clara." "Miss Martinez, this is Nurse Janet from Boston General. Your grandmother, Rose Martinez, was admitted an hour ago." Clara froze. The hallway tilted slightly. She got dizzy at home. The neighbor called 911. "She's stable, but we need you to come as soon as you can." The call ended, and Clara stood in the hallway, hands trembling, heart echoing in her ears. She didn't realize Logan had followed her until he spoke behind her, voice low. "Clara, what happened?" She turned, eyes glassy. "My grandmother. She's in the hospital. I need to go." Logan didn't ask for details. He just took off his suit jacket, handed it to Patricia without a word, and said, "Cancel everything." "But sir," "Everything. Reschedule the Koreans." He turned to Clara. "Come on." The drive to the hospital was silent. Clara sat curled in the passenger seat, staring out the window, but seeing nothing. Her fists clenched in her lap. "She's all I have," she said softly, almost to herself. Logan didn't reply with a cliché. He didn't offer empty comfort. He just drove faster. When they arrived, she moved quickly to the front desk. Logan followed her, always a step behind, quiet and protective. "Room 314. When Clara reached the door, she paused. Her breath caught. Logan touched her arm gently. "You don't have to do this alone." She looked at him, really looked, then nodded. They walked in together. Rose Martinez looked small in the hospital bed. Too small for someone who had once seemed 10 feet tall, but her eyes were alert, fierce. "Grandma," Clara whispered, rushing to the bed. My girl. Don't look so scared. It was just a dizzy spell. They're making a fuss over nothing." Clara sat on the edge of the bed, holding her hand tightly. "You scared me." Rose glanced past her. "And who's this handsome man?" Clara turned. "This is Logan Lancaster, my boss." Rose's eyes narrowed. "Lancaster, as in the one in the business magazines?" Logan stepped forward, suddenly unsure. "Yes." "Ma'am!" "It's a pleasure." Rose looked between them. "So you're the one who finally saw my Clara." Logan blinked. "Excuse me. I've been telling the world for years that she was brilliant. Took a while. But someone with decent taste finally caught up." Clara turned red. "Grandma." "What?" "I nearly fainted today. I have the right to embarrass you." Logan laughed, genuinely, like he hadn't laughed in weeks. Rose nodded. "I like him. He laughs properly." Later, when Rose was resting and the room had dimmed, Clara stepped into the hallway. Logan joined her. "I'm sorry I dragged you here," she said quietly. "I'm not," he replied. "Thank you for letting me in." She nodded, eyes still glassy. "You didn't have to come." "I know, but I wanted to." They stood there in silence, the fluorescent lights buzzing above them. "She raised me," Clara said. "I was 3 when she found me in that orphanage." Said, "I was sitting in a corner, trying to read a book that was way too advanced." She told me. That was the moment she knew. Knew what? That I wasn't meant to be forgotten. Logan swallowed hard. She was right. As they waited for the doctor's update, Clara sat curled in the waiting room chair, arms wrapped around her knees. Logan sat beside her. It was the first time she'd ever looked small to him. Not weak, just human. I thought I could handle anything, she whispered. But this, you don't have to handle it alone, he said again. Clara looked at him. There were tears in her eyes, but she wasn't crying. Not yet. You remember her name? She said softly. From what I told you. He nodded. Of course. I didn't expect that. You told me about the woman who taught you how to fight. Logan said, that's not something I forget. They sat like that, side by side, until the doctor came out to say Rose would be okay. Dehydration, high blood pressure. She just needed rest. Clara exhaled. And then, finally, the tears came quiet, relieved, real. Logan didn't say anything. He just reached over and took her hand. And for the first time, she let him. She had always been the one who translated for others, smoothed tension, made chaos understandable. But in that waiting room, someone had finally translated her pain and chose to stay anyway. We are sincere. Chapter 7. The Rome Invitation. It was a Tuesday, a quiet one. Clara was catching up on documents, translating a proposal for an Argentinian tech firm, when Logan walked into her office, holding 2 envelopes, the color of warm gold. Clara, he said gently, I want to show you something. He placed the invitations on her desk. Corporate Sustainability Conference. She read aloud. Rome. You've always wanted to see Italy, right? She blinked. Is this for work? No. Logan's voice dropped. Not this time. Clara looked up. I want you to come with me, he said. Not as my translator, not as my employee. Just as you. Her heart stopped and started again, slower. He didn't say it like a question. He said it like a risk, like a man who had been rehearsing the words and was now terrified they were out in the open. I don't, she began. Clara. He sat in the chair across from her, elbows resting on his knees. Rome is beautiful, but I don't want to see it without you. She smiled a sad, tired smile. You really don't see it. Do you see what? The power you have, the gravity. Her voice was low, not bitter, just real. When you ask someone to go to Rome, you're not just asking them to get on a plane. You're asking them to walk into a world they'll never belong to completely. Logan sat back, stunned. I don't mean to. I know. You don't. She interrupted gently. And that's the scariest part. That night, Clara sat at her tiny kitchen table. Rome invitation beside a half-eaten sandwich. Her grandmother, resting on the couch, watched her carefully. He asked you to go, Rose said. Clara nodded. And you're thinking of saying no. Clara exhaled. Because it changes everything. Rose smiled faintly. Maybe it changes what needs changing. But what if it's not real? Clara asked, tears rising. What if it's just the fantasy of proximity? Rose looked at her for a long time, then said, Clara, the world will always try to convince you that you are less. The test isn't whether he believes you belong. It's whether you do. The next morning, Clara walked into Logan's office holding a folder. I've made my decision, she said. Logan looked up, hopeful. You're coming. I'm resigning. The words landed like glass. What? She set the paper down. Her resignation letter. You're not serious. I am. Why? His voice cracked. Because I asked you to Rome? No. Because I wanted to say yes. Silence. I wanted to say yes so badly that I couldn't breathe. And that's when I realized I can't be in your life like this. Not yet. Clara, you're making this. I'm protecting what we have, she whispered. If I say yes now, and it all falls apart, I lose everything, the job, the respect, the chance I worked my whole life for. And if you walk away, she met his eyes, then at least I'll know that if we ever find each other again, it'll be because we chose it, not because we were stuck in the same office. Logan stood slowly, like someone absorbing a hit to the chest. This isn't how it was supposed to go. I know. And Rome, you'll go. You'll give a brilliant speech. You'll shake hands and close deals, and maybe, she swallowed, you'll realize what this really is. Logan stepped forward, his voice breaking. And if I do, Clara smiled, eyes full of unshed tears. Then you know where to find me. She turned to leave, then paused. Logan, yes. When you're in Rome, listen to music, not for the meetings, for yourself. Then she walked away, not broken, not begging, just brave. He offered her Rome. She gave him a choice. And somewhere between love and self-worth, she chose herself first. Chapter 8. The letter in his suitcase. The jet hummed beneath him, high above the Atlantic, but Logan Lancaster barely noticed the city lights shrinking below. His seat reclined to first-class comfort, the champagne untouched, the files unopened. He had everything, yet he felt completely hollow. Clara was supposed to be beside him. Every part of this trip, the hotel, the dinners, the moments between negotiations, had been built around her laugh, her insight, the way she made things make sense. But now, he was alone with the silence he used to crave. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Then he saw it, the edge of something white, peeking out from the side pouch of his carry-on, an envelope, unmarked. Familiar handwriting. His pulse stuttered. He opened it carefully, like it might break. Logan, if you're reading this, I've already left the office, and I imagine you're already halfway across the sky. I didn't want to leave things this way. But some goodbyes aren't loud. They're quiet. Like doors that close gently, but still close. These past few months have been the most challenging, exhilarating, and confusing of my life. You gave me something I never thought I'd have again, the chance to be seen, not just for what I could do, but for who I am. That means more than I know how to say. But here's the truth. I couldn't say in person. I didn't leave because I don't feel something for you. I left because I do. Too much, too deeply, too fast. And I needed to know if you felt it, too. When I wasn't just the person who saved your meetings, your company, your reputation. Do you still feel it? When I'm not around to translate the world for you? Because if you do, then it's not about timing or circumstances or convenience. It's about us. And if you don't, then at least I walked away with dignity, no matter what happens next. Thank you for letting me belong, even just for a moment, for seeing the girl who once cleaned floors and believed she was meant for more. And Logan, when you figure out what you're really looking for, you know where to find me. Clara, P.S. Don't forget to play jazz when you're happy. Logan didn't move for a long time. The plane continued toward Rome, but he wasn't thinking about contracts anymore. He was thinking about a girl who walked into his boardroom with rubber gloves and a cleaning rag and somehow cleaned the dust off his soul. And now she was gone, not because he pushed her away, but because she respected herself enough to walk. That night, in his 5-star hotel room with a view of the Colosseum, Logan didn't open his laptop. He didn't review his speech. He didn't go out. He just sat on the edge of the bed and read Clara's letter again and again and again until he understood. She had spoken every language he needed to hear, except the one he was too afraid to say back. But now, alone in Rome, the silence was finally loud enough to listen. Chapter 9. He knocked on apartment 3B. It was raining when Logan pulled up to her building. Not the cinematic kind of rain, the cold, gray kind that seeps into your coat and makes everything feel heavier. He sat in the car for 5 full minutes, staring up at the 3rd floor. The windows were glowing warm. He'd rehearsed what he was going to say 100 times on the flight back from Rome, but now, standing at her door, none of the words made sense. Still, he knocked. Once, twice. The door opened. Clara stood there in jeans and a faded sweatshirt, her hair tied up, no makeup, and yet she looked more stunning than he remembered. For a second, her face lit up. Then she blinked, guarded. "Logan, I needed to see you." She didn't move. "Why?" "Because Rome was wrong without you." She crossed her arms. "That's not a reason." He swallowed. "Because I figured it out." "Figured what out?" "That it wasn't proximity, or loneliness, or admiration." He took a slow breath. "It's you, Clara." She looked at him, searching, skeptical. "Do you know how many men have said that to me?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "Probably too many." "And do you know how many meant it?" He stepped closer, not touching, just presence. "I didn't come here as your boss, or with a job, or with a plane ticket." She folded her arms tighter. "I came with nothing except this," he said. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket. "The letter. I've read it so many times I could recite it backwards. And every time, I got stuck on one sentence." She said nothing. "You said, when you figure out what you're really looking for, you know where to find me." He stepped back, suddenly unsure. "Well," he said, voice quiet now. "Here I am." The hallway was silent. Then Clara did something he didn't expect. She stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Her apartment smelled like something baking. Banana bread, maybe. Books were stacked on the table. A cardigan draped over the couch. It was small, imperfect. It felt like home. Logan stood in the center, unsure of what to do with his hands. "I kept thinking," he said, "that if I just gave you space, you'd come back." "I wasn't coming back," she said simply. "I know." She looked at him, then directly. "So why are you here?" "Logan, what do you want?" He didn't flinch this time. "You. No titles, no job offers, no romantic vacation disguised as business." "Nope." She exhaled, slowly. "Why now?" "Because the minute you walked away, the silence was louder than your voice ever was. Because no one translates the world like you do. And because I'm tired of building empires. If I can't build something real with someone." She blinked back something behind her eyes. "Then, you're late." "I know." "I waited." "I know that, too." "Do you still listen to jazz when you're happy?" "I haven't been happy without you." That broke something in the air between them. Clara crossed the room slowly, and when she reached him, she didn't speak. She just rested her forehead against his chest, and he wrapped his arms around her like someone finally holding something fragile and real. She didn't need saving. She just needed someone who knew where to find her after the silence. And now, he had. Chapter 10. The contract, with one clause. The ballroom shimmered with soft lights and white roses. It was Lancaster Enterprises' annual winter gala. But for once, no one was talking about the numbers, the deals, or the sponsors. They were watching them. Clara stood near the entrance, wrapped in an emerald green dress that matched her eyes when she was determined. Logan stood beside her, in a black tux, but the suit looked different now. Not like armor, but like celebration. 6 months had passed since the night he knocked on apartment 3B. 6 months of building not just a relationship, but a rhythm, a partnership. She no longer translated for him. He no longer hid behind work. They sat in meetings together, challenged each other, laughed during budget reviews, whispered jokes in French. The company called them the perfect balance. Clara called them two people still figuring it out. And tonight, the room was waiting for Logan to speak. He walked onto the stage, adjusted the mic, then paused, eyes on her. "I've made hundreds of speeches in this room," he began. "But tonight, I want to talk about something harder than mergers and more fragile than contracts." The room hushed. "I want to talk about trust." He looked at Clara, and something unspoken passed between them. "For years, I believed trust was earned in numbers and loyalty, in performance, in proof. But then someone walked into my life and rewrote everything I thought I understood." He stepped down from the stage, walked across the ballroom, and stopped in front of her. In the middle of a crisis, she translated not just a document, but my life. She didn't ask for permission. She just told the truth. He pulled a small, blue velvet box from his jacket. Gasps fluttered across the room. Logan knelt. "But tonight," he said, voice steady, "I'm not asking you to translate or rescue or compromise. I'm asking you to build." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ringgold, classic, timeless. "Clara Martinez, will you sign a contract with me?" Clara blinked, breath-catching. He smiled softly. "It has only one clause. We choose each other every day. No expiration, no fine print, just truth." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. Then, louder, "Yes?" The room erupted in applause. 9 months later, in a sunlit chapel lined with white peonies and paper lanterns, Rose Martinez held a tiny pillow with 2 wedding bands. She looked healthier than ever and just as sassy. "Who gives this woman to be married?" The priest asked. "I do," Rose declared, "but I also give my full approval and a warning. She doesn't need saving. She just needs someone who listens." Laughter filled the church. Clara smiled, and Logan beamed at her like she was sunlight he'd been waiting for all his life. During the vows, Clara said, "You saw me when I was invisible, loved me when I was still learning how to love myself." And Logan said, "You taught me that real contracts don't live on paper. They live in the choices we make, even when it's hard." When they kissed, even Patricia, their ice-cold assistant, teared up at the reception, tucked between the cake table and the jazz band. Clara and Logan signed a symbolic document Logan had written himself. The Lancaster-Martinez contract. Clause 1. Each party agrees to choose the other every morning with intention, with grace, with a willingness to grow. Term. Forever. Clara signed first, then Logan. No witnesses needed. True love isn't grand gestures or perfect timing. It's the quiet decision to see someone not for who they were, but for who they're becoming, and the courage to walk with them anyway. The woman who was once invisible. It's funny, isn't it, how sometimes the person we overlook, the one pushing the cart down the hallway, or quietly wiping the corner of a table, is the one who ends up changing everything. Clara Martinez didn't set out to rewrite her story. She just refused to settle for the one the world wrote for her. And Logan Lancaster, the man who built walls of steel around his heart, didn't plan to fall in love with the one woman who could translate silence into truth. But that's what love does when it's real. It interrupts, it rewrites, it risks. In the end, it wasn't the billion-dollar contract that changed Logan's life. It was a quiet woman in scuffed sneakers who saw him not as a CEO, but as a man trying to remember who he used to be. And it wasn't the job offer or the title that changed Clara's. It was the moment she realized she didn't have to shrink to be worthy. She belonged in boardrooms, in love, in any room she chose. And together, they wrote a new kind of contract, the kind that doesn't expire, that has only one clause: choose each other every day. No fine print, no guarantees, just the truth. And maybe that's what we all want, isn't it? Not perfection, not fairy tales, just someone who sees us, listens, and stays. If this story moved you, the next one goes even deeper. Maybe you'll see a little of yourself in it, or someone you once loved. Either way, I'll meet you there. Subscribe for more true love stories. And if you believe in second chances, leave a comment below.